Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. This monster family is probably one that you want to kiss to turn back into a human. It's the swamp dwellers, the bog creatures, and the slime princes. This particular family is a weird one. I'm not entirely sure if they actually exist within zones or if they just simply have like a chance to spawn from the water, because that's usually where they come from. You're walking along and they just pop out of the water and they start spitting poison at you. They sometimes go back into the water too, and they're not particularly very difficult to kill either. Very odd monster type, and not even particularly worth talking about, except for the fact that they seem to be relatively rare and only in Act 3. I don't even think there is a like guest version of this particular monster in the Act 5 bestiary. I'm pretty sure that Frog Demon does not appear in the guest monster list. And of course, why would it? Because they have to come out of water and there's not always water sources everywhere. In fact, some of the water sources are frozen. Um, so let's take a look real quick. So, Ariat Summit says the darkening of the lands of Kyrgyzstan during the Mage Clan Wars left much of the realm bristling with untamed magical energies. While much of this dissipated over time, some had effects on upon the landscape and creatures of the jungle. Trees and vines would grow to unusual size, rivers and swamps would appear overnight, and once innocuous creatures would gain dangerous abilities with an appetite to match. Such is the case with the locales referred to the frog demons. These swamp-dwelling monstrosities spit poisonous mucus at their prey to kill it without having to engage in physical confrontation. Once their victim has fallen to the powerful poison, the amphibious beasts strip the carcass of all the flesh, leaving a pile of highly polished bones as the only evidence of the dead. Frog demons spit projectiles that can knock back your character, and they also submerge into rivers to hide. Swamp dwellers and bog creatures spit firebolts, and slime princes spit poison projectiles, and their melee attack also has a chance of poisoning you. I have one of these monsters on the screen right now. This is the swamp dweller, and the swamp dwellers, they're just really weird monsters. As you can see, this one fires firebolts, which is, I think they're fireballs actually, because it looks like they explode. The knock you back, which is also kind of strange for a spell, because I don't think there's a lot of spells that actually have knockback attached to them. They also kind of avoid melee. They don't really want to fight you in melee, so they kind of just like bounce around and pretend like they're hitting you and like back and forth while they fire their fireballs. They're kind of grody. Like even in the original game, they look really grody. I do believe that when you attack them within a certain HP pool variance, I think they usually end up going back into the swamp, but I'm not entirely sure. Let's see if we can get this one to run back into the water. As you can see, they almost miraculously appear out of nowhere. Like this one literally just popped out of a bush. They kind of seem like, and this is kind of weird to say this, but they kind of seem like more mobile versions of the other one, which is the tentacle beast that I just talked about recently. So the tentacle beast is one that stays in the water and shoots at you from the water and knocks you back with his poison attacks. Whereas the frog demons and the swamp dweller, bog creatures, and the slime princes seem to be like more mobile versions of the same exact type of monster, because they also have a chance to knock you back with their attacks. They also don't do melee, and they have the ability to jump back into the water to hide. So kind of similar. They also have one of the most gruesome deaths, by the way. I've always noticed this about these guys. When you kill one of the frog princes or whatever, like they always die in this like grand ridiculousness, like exploding and then like poison shooting everywhere. Even in the original game, of course, fire had to be going at that particular moment, but it's really quite gruesome. And then if you look, like their skeletons are just sitting on the floor in both the original version and the new version. Almost as like all the flesh on their bones just disappears and leaves behind nothing but their skeletons. And it's a pretty cool like death graphic as far as like death graphics go. Their HP isn't particularly high at 4,530 to 8,010. That's mediocre. 10,000 would be a middling point, so they're much below the middling point. The resistances that they have are almost non-existent. They have 15 physical resistance, which is basically nothing, and no magic resistance. No fire resistance except for the fire version, which is immune to fire. No cold resistance, really, except for the cold version, the bog creature, which is immune to cold. And no lightning at all. They have moderate poison resistance, except for the Slime Prince, which is the poison variant, which is immune to poison. But for the most part, they're just not really particularly very hard to kill. There's really not much to say about these guys other than when they show up, they're really easy to kill. They don't really have much damage output. Sometimes the poison can be a little bit annoying, but there's a lot of poison in the swamp, and it kind of gets lost in the background as background noise. Pretty much all of the flayers and things like that can poison you. There's a bunch of different monsters in the game that can poison you. So like the zombies when they die put a poison puddle, like up and whatnot. It doesn't really matter all that much. Like it's a horrible place. The entire jungle is a horrible place to be. And like adding one more poison monster into a list of poison monsters isn't really that big of a deal. This is the bog creature. This is the cold immune one right here. And as you can see, it still fires fire attacks. I would think that the cold immune one would probably fire cold attacks, but it seems like they didn't program in a cold variant of the ranged attack, so it's just a fire attack for this one. The Slime Prince is the only one that does the poison damage, and again, also the same like gruesome death explosion with like blood everywhere, and it's really quite grody looking too, because like some of their blood, like as you see in this one, it looks green, but in this one their blood is like almost like a gray silvery color, which is a little bit more interesting than just like all of them being green. Um, Overall, just like really weak monsters. Not even really worth talking about, except for the fact that I want to make a video on every single monster. Kind of rare. You may potentially go through Act 3 and not even see them. There are potential like run throughs where you just will never see one of these guys. They don't particularly follow very strongly either, so most of the time you can just run by them and it doesn't really matter. They don't really have much of a chase mechanic to them. For the ones that do spawn, like you can basically just run away from them. The damage output on them is relatively mediocre, and honestly, they're not real hard to kill either if you just want to turn around and mollywop them, because it's not really that big of a deal. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching. Some of them are going to be short like this, and that's just how it's going to be because there's not really much to talk about with the Frog Demon. And as always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button because this is my full-time job. And keep watching.